Now, continuing in this chapter, it states, "And it came to pass afterward that he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. And the lords of the Philistines came up unto her and said unto her, Entice him," meaning Samson, "and see wherein his great strength lieth, and by what means we may prevail against him, that we may bind him to afflict him. And we will give thee every one of us 1,100 pieces of silver. And Delilah said to Samson, Tell me, I pray thee, wherein thy great strength lieth, and wherewith thou mightest be bound to afflict thee." Here, the pursuit of riches served as the motivation for betrayal. Judas's motivation, according to the Gospels, was thought to be envy, although he received a little money. After several pressing attempts by Delilah, going further into the narrative of Samson, after she pressed him in several attempts, she finally convinced Samson to reveal the secret of his power to her. And again, he bowed to her wishes and told her that his strength lied in his hair, in the 7 locks of his hair. So knowing this now, while Samson was resting on her lap, she had someone to come in and cut off the locks of Samson's hair, which depleted his power. And the words of the narrative suggest that he was detached from the Lord. But his power, the great power he had, dissipated. And as a result, Samson was captured by the Philistines, who then plucked out his eyes so he couldn't see anymore. They bound him and put him in prison, and then they began to use him for sport and play as a form of mockery and entertainment. So in completing this narrative of Samson, it continues and finally states, "And it came to pass, when their hearts were merry, that they said, Call for Samson, that he may make us sport. And they called for Samson out of the prison house, and he made them sport. And they set him between the pillars." Now keep in mind, as I read these, the crucifixion of Jesus, because the crucifixion is meant to disgrace you, and it serves as sport for those who are orchestrating it. Now verse 26. "And Samson said to the lad that held him by the hand, Suffer me that I may feel the pillars upon the house, whereupon the house standeth, that I may lean upon them. Now the house was full of men and women, and all the lords of the Philistines were there. And there were upon the roof about 3,000 men and women that beheld while Samson made sport, while they made mockery of him. And Samson called unto the Lord and said, O Lord God, remember me, I pray thee, and strengthen me. I pray thee only this once, O God, that I may be at once avenged of the Philistines for my 2 eyes. Now think of this again in the context of what Jesus' words were when he was on the cross, his plea to the Father. Verse 29. And Samson took hold of the 2 middle pillars upon which the house stood and on which it was borne up, of the one with his right hand and the other with his left hand. And Samson said, Let me die with the Philistines. And he bowed himself with all his might, and the house fell upon the lords and upon all the people that were therein. So the dead which he slew at his death were more than they which he slew in his life. So this indicates that the occasion that Allah sought through Samson was to slay thousands of his enemies. Although achieving this objective cost Samson his life. Hence, this narrative reveals the winding road of war and betrayal that Samson had to journey through to achieve the occasion that God sought. Now, this relates to the crucifixion of the Messiah as being the beginning of the deliverance of his people, the original people of the Western Hemisphere.